What if you could silence the noise of the world and access inner bliss? What if you knew the shining formulas for overcoming the enormous challenges that every soul faces? Welcome everyone, I'm Shakti Durga. Mystery School Podcast, Ancient Wisdom for Everyday Life. We'll explore the ancient wisdom of the East and West, sharing stories and music, channeling light beings, scanning the unseen world, learning useful spiritual tools, and bringing forth peace, love, purpose, and abundance. In Mystery School, we co-create and share sacred frequencies, sending ripples of love that empower new possibilities to ignite our spirits, overcome obstacles, manifest our most inspired life, a life where your challenges become doorways to your deepest truth, where you anchor yourself in clarity and presence, not from your pain, but from the doors it opens into the deepest wisdom that's already within you. Your path has already begun. It's right beneath your feet. Let's illuminate that path together. Hello everybody, welcome to Mystery School. I'm Shakti Durga. Some of you may have heard about some recent events here in Sydney, Australia, where a shooter took the lives of 15 people and injured about 40 others. This is very unusual for Australia. I know that in other parts of the world these things happen more often, but for us it was a real ripping of the veils of what we considered to be normal for our little sleepy city of Sydney. That is a seaside jewel really, and a place where people enjoy the outdoors and the sun and the beaches with great safety. And it made me think about the purpose of all of us at a time like this. What can we do? And so I thought we would look at what the ancient wisdom teaches us about these situations. And I'm going to share a few slides with you to help us on this journey, because there's a lot of people who are hurting around this, and people who are feeling very afflicted, whole groups of people, the Jewish people here in Australia, and others, the locals at Bondi, a lot of people feeling very uncertain and very shaken. So let's just have a look at what happens when an unexpected event comes into our life and really shatters the reality that we're used to. So I'd just like to share with you a couple of thoughts about this. And that is an elevator door on your screen right there. And it's part of what is the paradox of spiritual growth, really, that sometimes the moments that feel like the worst of times, setbacks is too mild a word really to describe the agony and the pain that people go through at these times. But whether it's something fairly mild or something extreme, the ancient wisdom tells us that all of these events are doorways to a profound inner expansion of consciousness. So let's explore this a little bit. Every single person in some way in their life is going to have unexpected events occur, be they of a personal nature or living through a natural disaster or a community disaster, or there's things we live through. Things we have, divorces and diagnoses and accidents, car accidents, shocking things can happen to people. So when everything is going well and people are pretty much getting on with each other, it's easy to stay in a state of love and connection. But I think what's happening in these times is the universe is putting us into a learning zone of what is it that happens when what we regard as normal crumbles, when there is adversity, the kind of which we would never wish on anybody, when the normal structures of your life are taken away, or when a relationship ends. Then how do we show up? So this is the question. It is true to say that very often before we have an expansion of consciousness and we break through to a whole new way of being, that we go through a very dark time. This dark time is like the darkness that we experience before dawn, when if you've ever been awake at that time of day, it is super dark, darker than it is at any other time, because the rising sun is causing the stars to fade away, but the sun hasn't risen yet, so it becomes very, very dark. And this is a time of incredible creative potential being brought into the realm of our own life. And it is the beginning of a potential for the birthing of the light that already exists within us, coming into a more manifest form in all of our lives. The ancient Egyptians and the Western mystics called this the cracking of the egg, when things would happen that you just never thought. You'd been happily living your life inside the egg of your own beliefs about the world, your own experience base of how things were, and suddenly you get cracked open by these events, like what happened in Bondi recently. And so the thing is that deep in the core essence of our being, beneath our conscious minds, beneath our personality structure, there lies eternal and extraordinary light that's been covered up by layers of other kinds of subtle bodies that we all have. And it's in these times when the egg of our consciousness, of our life, just got cracked, that we are able to experience things differently to how we ever have before. Now, the initial cracking will always be a fiery, painful kind of experience, whether it is, someone betrays us, or we have an accident, we're suddenly in the emergency department, people around us have been killed, there's been tragedy and trauma. So this is the perennial pattern. So let's see what this can lead to. The perennial pattern of which I spoke can happen personally to one individual, or it can be a societal cracking of the egg or a global cracking of the egg. So in Sydney recently, it's been an extraordinary time of people in shock, but pretty much as soon as the shock has abated, there's been people reaching out to each other, offering support, offering healing, offering help, running spiritual circles through all different spiritual belief systems, patterns, and platforms. There's been a real uptake of the idea of the Hanukkah time of year, which is the Jewish time of, turning to the light, celebrating the light and the miracles of the light. And so people who aren't Jewish are lighting candles and are saying, well, we're standing with you. And the Jews themselves are lighting their candles. They're lighting the candles for those who now can't light candles. They're lighting candles for all the people who came in as rescuers. They're lighting candles even for the shooters. They're lighting candles for everybody, that there can be healing through this, that this crack in the fabric of people's lives will lead to an enlightenment, an illumination, and a better world for everybody on the other side of it. So it's very shocking, and it's also the situation that everybody involved in something like that is facing a set of elevator doors. Now, depending upon how we meet a crisis like this, the elevator of the general vibration of our life might go up or it might go down. And really it depends on us. Now, there's no doubt that any kind of crisis or adversity is going to create that there is a down, that the elevator's gone down vibrationally. We're in shock, we're in pain, we're in anger. We've got to feel our feelings about things. That's really important to the human condition. And if we couldn't feel our shock, if we couldn't feel outrage and all the things, then we wouldn't really be human. But what we can also look to is that there is this shape that we can think about the fabric of consciousness itself taking on this shape, that with every transition that takes us down through a challenge, it's like the shape of a giant J. So there we are at the J. We have to travel. It's like a hell realm journey before we expand upwards into more love, more light, more joy, more bliss, and more beauty than we ever knew could exist. So that is the design inherent in creation itself, that we humans are part of this huge design. So remember that it's about accessing the light within, that we can access that light whether there's good times or hard times in our life. So when our life thrusts us into this adversity, shock, and pain, we have a choice. So let me just share a story, a tale of two divorces. Let's take the first person. I know it looks like the same person, probably is, but in those pictures. But imagine the first one's Helen. Helen gets divorced. She feels all the pain of the betrayal of her husband leaving her and having an affair with another woman that had been going on for some time. She had been pretty much criticized by her husband for a very, very long time. And over the course of a 25-year marriage, Helen, who started off being a very happy-go-lucky kind of person who was always the life of a party and very creative, her spirit had been really trounced over the marriage, and she had become so criticized. She'd taken the criticism into herself and become highly critical. So when the divorce came, she just stayed in that mode and was just highly critical. It's as though she'd lost the self who used to be the happy self, and all that remained was the self that had been taken into this horrible, hellish realm of emotional turmoil and turbulence. But she'd gotten stuck there, and she just hadn't been able to find her way out. And she was stuck really in a paradigm of blame, that it was all about him. And she wasn't willing to go on a journey of self-discovery, a journey of self-awareness through which she could potentially move through that to something else that she hadn't ever experienced before. Ruth, on the other hand, had a similar kind of story, in that Ruth also went into a marriage which turned out to be a turbulent marriage. There was a lot of abuse, particularly verbal abuse, emotional abuse. And she had also been really closed down. And when she went through a similar ending of her marriage where her husband had an affair, she felt absolutely betrayed. And similar to Helen, actually, very, very similar cases. And these are kind of composite cases from my healing practice. I see a lot of people who are in this situation. And Ruth took a different approach. A friend encouraged Ruth to go along to a meditation program and to engage in a course of personal development. And Ruth took to it like a duck to water, and she just found herself through the process of recovering from the divorce. She found herself, and she worked on herself, and she learned to meditate, and she learned about how her thoughts were creating her reality. And she learned that she herself had actually, as it turned out, been extremely negative about herself. And she realized that her husband had been all this time really only just saying what was arising from inside of her anyway. And she realized that he was nothing but a mirror, and that the power is in Ruth herself to change. And she did. So over a period of a couple of years, Ruth went through an extraordinary transformation from someone who could have become stuck in their pain like Helen did. But instead, Ruth was able to move through all that pain and feel it and process it and have healings and have, help, basically. And she got through it. Now, that's not to say that she didn't have bad days from time to time. Of course she did. But on the whole, she was able to reconnect with her happiness and her wholesomeness. And Ruth went on to form another relationship, which was an absolutely amazing and beautiful relationship, because she'd changed so much through this cracking of the egg and facing her own inner darkness and processing that darkness. She'd been able to come into her true, eternal, light, and it was just a pleasure to witness that journey for her. So every time there's a calamity, every time the sky feels like it's falling in and there's unimaginable pain, loss, and sorrow going on in the world, we can find some way on a spiritual path to be able to process that pain in a way that will lift us from where we started. Sure, we go through the pain, but we don't stay there. We actually lift up to a higher consciousness than we would ever have felt and experienced if it hadn't been for the terrible calamity through which we're going. So I'd like each of you to think right now about a time when you yourself faced the lift doors, when the egg was cracking for you in your life. Has there been a time where you really relate to, perhaps you've been, violated in some way, or perhaps your freedom was usurped by somebody, or you were attacked, or there was some viciousness in your life? Whatever it's been, maybe it was a relative who behaved in a way that you just thought was totally unconscionable. Whatever it is, all of us are affected by something usually in our life. And so think what that might be for you. And I'll stop sharing now. I'll just get out of that. And here we are back together again. And let's just do a little meditation together to try and help each one of us to move through. So it'll be a brief meditation, but there's many more resources on my website, shaktidurga.com. And there's also a platform you can join, shantimission.org, has a mighty platform that you can download and have as an app on your phone or your computer, where you can see all the stuff, because we do this all the time, helping people from extreme situations into peace. And it's what our organization Shanti Mission does best. So if you resonate with being affected by these things, check it out. There's a lot of free resources and things for you to join into so that you get some support. And there's many other places, of course, that you can get that support as well. But this one I know because it's been curated by our team here. So I'm going to play a little bit of lovely harp music by the beautiful Veena Vani, and I just want you to relax and just go within. And taking a deep breath. And just feeling for the sound of that music, beautiful sound, and draw the lovely sound of the harp into your body. And breathing slowly and deeply as you contemplate some of the challenges that life has put you through. And we're going to do a little bit of group healing together. So just contemplating the divine as you call and understand the divine in your life. I call upon the Holy Spirit and the consciousness of Christ, the Lakshmi consciousness, the spirit of the earth and sun, the great illumination of which we're capable. And let's call on our own higher souls and all of our spirit guides who love us unconditionally to be here with us and help us to awaken and emerge from any kind of crisis, any dark point in life, and to find the true gold within our beings through transmuting the darkness, through churning that darkness, through the light of our own inner being, and ending up shining brighter than ever before. In full faith, so be it. So just thinking about any time that's been particularly difficult for you, and say, I now release all of the heaviness and darkness that's gathered within my being, and I set that free from my body, mind, and spirit. And breathing in and releasing everywhere. and say, I set free the feelings of overwhelm, and I ask for help from those who've walked before me, who've turned agony into golden light. Please help me to do this too. And breathe deeply in, and then just releasing through your whole being. And say, I release all attachment to how I used to be, to how my world used to be. And I set myself free to awaken into more of the truth and brilliant light within my being. And breathing deeply in and releasing. And just breathing slowly and deeply, and be aware of any tingling within your body, releasing the tingling out through your hands and feet, letting the old energy go. And let's not define ourselves by our wounds, but let's ask for help in the spiritual victory over our wounds. So breathing deeply in and just asking the divine of your awareness for help in overcoming the darkness, in piercing the veils of illusion spun by the darkness, to come into the clarity and truth of your own essence. And breathing deeply in, and feel the light inside you starting to expand, and let it radiate outwards through your whole being, like the light that was coming out of the cracking of the egg. And being aware of the J curve, and imagine yourself sliding down from where you were before the events of life took place, going through all that darkness, but being buoyed upward by the infinite hand of the oneness, and by your own yearning not to be caught in there, and asking for the strength of the Divine Mother, the Durga strength and courage, to arise like the phoenix from the ashes of what was, coming into a whole new field of awareness and awakening, more love and joy and fulfillment and peace than we ever thought possible, and feeling the expansion in your own heart and soul as the eternal truth of this pattern lodges itself in your consciousness, a pattern that you can follow no matter what's happening in your world. So breathe deeply in again as we give thanks for the providence that brought us together today, and for the opportunity to heal and grow together. May we always have compassion for ourselves and others, and come together as one, as we affirm and live in the light, in full faith. So be it. And just breathing deeply in and hold. And then when you're ready, just bring your awareness back into your body and open your eyes. Good job, everybody. And there are, of course, many different steps and stages on this path of recovery, but a simple meditation like this, where you visualize the light that can't be extinguished and that it's always with you and inside you, can be a really helpful place to park your brain when life would otherwise be unbearable. So sending love from our hearts to everybody who's been affected by any of the great outpourings in the world, the natural disasters, the human disasters, everything that's happening. May it bring more of the golden light into our world, and may we live in that light together. Namaste, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me for Mystery School, Ancient Wisdom for Everyday Life. Be the detective of your spirit and soul and seek the doorways to a new reality. Take one insight from today and let it illuminate your path. Visit shantimission.org to learn more about our other programs, meditations, and resources for living with ease and grace, and sign up for our free Soulful Relationships Masterclass. In this class, we'll cleanse and purify the relationship energy in a key relationship in your life. Previous students have experienced rapid transformation in their marriages, in their relationships, with family, work colleagues, teenagers, just from this one practice. And you'll have a spiritual key to successful relationships that you can use again and again. Sign up for the free masterclass at shantimission.org. And we'll be back at 3 p.m. Pacific time every first and third Monday for Mystery School. Mark it in your calendar. We'll see you next time.